Go for it.
Welcome to Everyday Eternal episode 15. I'm Matt Pavlic.
I'm Sam Craven.
I'm Bob Huang.
And today we're going to be talking about True-Name Nemesis, we're going to be talking about tournament reports, and everything you need to know about how the meta is going to shift.
Hey Matt, why don't you rewind real quick and tell the listeners who Bob is?
Oh, yes. So Bob is actually also known as Akatsuki on the Source. We actually met originally at Grand Prix Denver. However, Bob is a longtime Legacy player who finished 9th at Providence and I think also 9th at GPDC, correct?
Actually, Dan Signorini finished 9th. I finished 16th.
Oh, you break my heart, Bob.
It's still top 16.
Top 16ing a Legacy GP is no easy feat, so we were very welcome to have you on the show. And hopefully you can provide some insight onto your bug delver list, which we haven't really seen performing in the last, say, little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely happy to talk about it, and definitely happy to be here.
Yep.
Okay, so Sam, you're up.
So I was at GPDC recently. It was a very cool event. Finally got to meet Sean and Jaco, who hosts our casts. I did very poorly at the event. I did not win a single game. I actually kind of wished that I didn't have buys, because if I didn't have buys, I could have dropped out in the first couple rounds and done the rebound tournament. But instead, I dropped out after the third round with no wins. The third round, so the first round I played against Miracles. The guy was all in on the Helm combo, so he comboed me out on turn 5 or 6 on both games. So that was over quickly. The next game I played against Shardless Bug, and the deck just did nothing. I kept a 4-lander. I only have 21 lands in my deck. Kept a 4-lander and drew 6 lands in a row.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, not a lot you can do about that. And then the next game, my hand was okay, and about the only good plan I had in it was to keep him locked down under Blood Moon. And we fought over Blood Moon a couple times. He bounced it, I'd play it again. He bounced it, I'd play it again. And I never got anything going aside from Blood Moon. He finally got a couple creatures down where he'd bounce Blood Moon and play like a Goyf, and then I'd play Blood Moon again. And on the last possible turn I could save myself, I did not draw a turn miss. I drew a Supreme Verdict, and I did not have the correct basic lands to play it. But I talked to the guy. He said he was a longtime Miracles player. He looked at my hand and showed me his. He said, I think Blood Moon was the correct call, because look at all this stuff I didn't do. You just didn't draw well at all. And then third round, so I guess round 5, I played against another Bug player, and he killed me on turn 4 with giant creatures. Go to game 2, I keep a hand that's all creature control. He thought seizes me. Is wow, that's a pretty good hand, and then proceeds to Lily on it and Jace me to death. So the tournament was over pretty quickly, and went back into the city to see the museums and stuff. As for the tournament itself, it seemed like it was relatively well run. I haven't been to events that big. There was 1,698 people, just missed that 1,700 mark. There were a few issues. We got very far behind time pretty quickly. The player meeting started 20 or 30 minutes late, and the first round started 10 or 15 minutes after the player meeting. I did the math, and it seemed like by the time I left, which was after round 5, it seemed like they were almost an hour to an hour and a half behind schedule. Walking around the hall, I saw a lot of show and tell, a lot of True-Name Nemesis, which we'll be talking about later. Of course, that's the current big boogeyman of the format. But yeah, it was a pretty good tournament. Wish I could have done better, but getting to drop out that early meant that we got to do a little bit more stuff than we planned in our time in DC.
Cool. So, if you had any suggestions, or would you have built your deck any differently, or was it just all bad luck?
I think the deck is fine. I think I played well. I think I didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. I think I just lost really hard to variance, and I'm going to go ahead and blame it on the fact that I've been doing really well with Miracles lately, and say that this is just to make up for all of the doing well I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, that that first match sounds pretty brutal, where he was just all in on the Helm combo, and you probably only had one Helm in your deck, so you kind of just lose.
Yeah, he was running 4 Rest in Peace and 2 Helm, and on game 1 he went turn 2 Rest in Peace, and then he went turn 4 Helm, so he went off as fast as he possibly could have. And I had counter spells, but I had been using them for things like top, because that's usually what the most important card in the deck is going to be to counter. And he just, he got it real quickly, so, these things happen.
Okay, so I also have a tournament report. As some of you may know, I host the Classic series in Vancouver, and we had our Autumn Legacy Classic. And it was last week, and it was really good. I won my own tournament.
Cheater.
Asshole.
Obviously. Hey. So I had a very decent run, so I played against Quad Laser Dredge and won. A very tight game. Lost to Affinity, which is a bye matchup for junk, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. Then I played against Tess and lost. Just had the nut hand, didn't have the hate fast enough. Then I played against Patriot, and I won. And what else did I play against? Patriot, something. And it was fine. So I top 8'd. So then in the top 8, I had to face Ant, and it was my friend, unfortunately. However, he got mana screwed, really bad hands, multi 4. I had Gaddock Teague and Thalia, so that was kind of game over. Let's see, I'm actually going to read my tournament report a little bit, because I don't remember.
Make sure that it's correct.
Yeah, in order. I don't want to forget anybody, and they'll be like, why did you miss me?
So how many people were at the tournament?
Not that many, unfortunately. Just due to there was a PTQ on the same day. So instead of having like 40 people, we had 20. So it was a very small classic this time. And I also played against Painter. So basically, if you're playing against Painter as a 3-color deck, keep a hand with basics. Otherwise, you lose. Just saying, guys. So I played against Painter. I lost game 1 because he's just like turn 1 Blood Moon, and I'm sitting on a 5-card hand of, Wasteland, Scrubland, Bayou, and that didn't work out well.
I think what you meant to say was of Mountain, 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 and Mountain.
Correct. So that was not particularly entertaining, but then game 2, I had basic Deathrite, and it was fine. Game 3, same thing. I just have too much removal. He can't deal with it.
Yeah,
so like I said Sorry?
I was just going to say, this is why I hate Imperial Painter. It's such a bad deck. If your deck can beat Blood Moon at all, you can beat Painter so easily.
Pretty much, especially with Abrupt Decay in the format. They're like grind you, and you're like, nah. So anyway, quarterfinals, I played against Warfordium on the Source, and unfortunately crushed him. Then I played a 2-hour semifinals game against True-Name Nemesis Bant. So we had actually designed this deck on Facebook, James and I, about 2 days previous, and we're like, yeah, this is how we build a deck to beat the format. And the deck was good. It was really good. However, I knew his 75, and, well, obviously you can keep better hands when you know the deck list. And so basically in game 1, he gets a quick Geist and a True-Name Nemesis. I just have like a bunch of 3-drops in my hand, and I die. So I bring in Deeds, Golgari Charm, Pulse, Sylvan Safekeeper, and Lingering Souls. And I board out my Hand Disruption, my Goyfs, and my Knights, because I know he's bringing in Rest in Pieces. So basically, I leverage my Deeds and my Golgari Charms to blow out his key stuff. I keep Select Pride Mage online to make sure he can't bounce his Batterskull, otherwise I kill it. And then Sylvan Library just like crushes him with card advantage. That game was 75 minutes.
Jesus.
Yep. So Lingering Souls took that game, actually, after he pathed most of my guys. It was great. Game 3, Charms, I had an early deed, so I turn 3 deeded, and left it online so he couldn't overextend. Then I played Liliana, then I deeded the board. It was great. Liliana won the game. Not much to say there.
Yeah, that's what she's supposed to do.
Yeah, and that game was almost 60 minutes, so... Basically, one of the guys actually had to leave. The guy who I was playing in the finals with had to leave in 45 minutes when we started the finals. But he was playing Tess, so we knew that it was going to be over. Basically, I lose to a diminishing returns hand on in game 1. He just has it, and I don't. Game 2, he gives a slower hand, but I Thoughtseize and then Gaddock on turn 2. And it was great. I just had Cabal Therapy and then Dryad Arbor, so I ripped apart his double LED, double ritual hand, and then I killed him. Game 3, he leads with Thoughtseize, taking my Gaddock, but then I rip Thalia and get him. So if I didn't rip Thalia, I lost, and if I ripped Thalia, I won, and it did. So we were playing basically at that point over a Scalding Tarn, because that was the difference between first and second. And yeah, so it was good. So I heard that, Bob, you played in some tournaments at some point, and you may have done okay.
That
Tell
is
us about
accurate.
it. Tell us about it.
Sure. So, I'm from Boston originally, but I moved to the Virginia area for work, and I've been there since about July. And I actually quit my job. So basically, my full-time job was just playtesting Legacy for a few months. So I was really looking forward to the GP, and it actually happened to be in Chantilly, which was about 20 minutes from where I lived. So I spent a lot of time sort of exploring different deck choices. I was considering Sneak and Show at one point. I was considering Blue, White, Red Delver, but ultimately I settled on Bug Delver. And you can actually see my tournament report on Channel Fireball. It'll probably be a lot more in detail than I can remember it now, but basically I ran incredibly well with the deck. I was lucky that it never really, pooped on itself, and yeah, I made top 16 in DC, so that was pretty sweet.
One thing I want to sidebar real quick. You point out it was in Chantilly, Virginia. I am sick of these TOs saying things are places that they're not. Because this place was $68 cab ride away from Washington, D.C.
Ooh, that's because you took the wrong. You probably went to Reagan, right? You should have gone to Dulles.
No, I went to Dulles. It was, if you wanted to go to the city, though, it was not easy. Just like
Yeah,
as a comparison, like GP Houston is in downtown Houston. GP DC was like a 30 or 40-minute drive outside of DC.
yeah, that's how they get you.
Yeah. Makes it a little harder, especially when you're somewhere like DC that has so much stuff that out-of-towners are going to want to do. It's really hard when you have your event that far away, so you can either be in town and have it be hard to go to the event, or be near the event and have it be really hard to go into town. That's just what was one of my little complaints about the GP. Anyway, sorry. Continue your report.
Yeah, do you guys have any particular things you'd be more interested in me recounting?
Talk about the deck list.
Sure. Okay, so I was playing the standard Bug Delver deck list, which basically the main deck is set in stone of 58 cards, and there were sort of 2 flex slots. So basically the main deck is 20 lands, and then the creature suite is 4 Deathrights, 4 Delvers, 4 Goyfs, and 2 Tombstalkers. We chose to play Tombstalker over True-Name Nemesis because although so I tested it with a bunch of guys from Curio Cavern, so like Nightwolf from the Source, the Hatfields, and this is the list that we settled on. And we chose to play Tombstalker over True-Name because although we thought True-Name was a lot more powerful in a vacuum, we felt like Tombstalker sort of just goes way over the top over True-Name and like kind of laughs at that card. So if you look at our creature suite, Tombstalker, Delver, and Deathright don't really care about True-Name. Tarmogoyf does care, but if they're attacking with True-Name, which is a 3/1, then you can swing back with like a 4/5 or a 5/6, so you're still in pretty good shape. Um, Other spells, Abrupt Decay, Brainstorm, Daze, Force of Will, Hymn to Torok, Ponder, are sort of the instants and sorceries that are set in stone. They're just incredibly broken. Funny thing about this deck, Team America, it's not played very much over in the U.S. It's played a little bit more over in Europe, but 11 of the 12 it's playing 11 of the 12 most played cards in Legacy, according to mtgdecks.net. So that's pretty good when all the cards in your deck are broken. And so there were 2 flex slots, and for those 2 slots, I chose to play Sylvan Library because that card is insane. As Matt
I've been
Pavlic
telling
will,
everyone.
yeah,
So good.
yeah. And the reason this deck doesn't play 2 is because it already plays Brainstorms and Ponders. Otherwise, it definitely could play 2. And then the other flex slot, I chose to play Liliana of the Veil. Dan chose to play Disfigure. I just wanted to have another card that wasn't dead against combo, so I chose to play Liliana of the Veil instead. And then for the sideboard, it's one creeping tar pit, 3 Disfigure, 1 Engineered Plague, 3 Golgari Charms, 1 Liliana of the Veil, 2 Spell Pierce, 3 Stifle, and 1 Vendilion Click. And I think most of the cards in the sideboard were really good. That was actually the time I spent the most time trying to figure out what I wanted there, and it ended up working out really well. Disfigure is just insane right now. It kills every single creature in the format that you care about. So like Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, Young Pyromancer, Dark Confidant, they all just die to Disfigure. The only thing it doesn't kill is Tarmogoyf, and you already have Abrupt Decay for that, or your own Goyfs, or Tombstalker. So, yeah, that card was fantastic. The other card that was really good is Golgari Charm. You guys have been talking about this card as well, and it's absolutely bonkers in Team America because it does everything you want. Not only does it kill, the pesky Mother of Runes or Elves, which is also a pretty bad matchup, it kills Rest in Peace, which kind of hoses your creature base and makes you unable to, do much. And it also kills Blood Moon, Sneak Attack, Leyline of Sanctity against Sneak and Show, and then it also counters Supreme Verdict and Abrupt Decay, and like Lightning Bolt too. So it just literally does everything. It's the Cadillac of our sideboard right now. And
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, all the other choices were pretty standard to fight combo. Sorry, Matt, you're gonna say something?
I was just gonna say I agree. Golgari Charm is very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually considering moving maybe 1 or 2 to the main deck, just because the only deck it's really dead against game 1 is Storm, and every other deck it has applications against, and it's just really good against some of our bad matchups game 1, like Death and Taxes and Elves. But yeah, so that's the deck list. I ended up changing up a few things for Providence. I ended up cutting the Stifles. The Stifles were there mainly for Shardless Bug and Jund, and those decks have been sort of on the decline lately because they don't really take full advantage of True-Name Nemesis. So I cut the Stifles, and then I added a Croson Grip to deal with Batterskull and a couple other spells to deal with, True Blade.
Okay, cool. So overall, would you change anything from your last particular finish?
I haven't really thought that much about the deck, to be honest. I liked my list a lot from Providence, so I think I would probably just stick with that. Maybe change up a few things depending on the expected metagame, but I like it a lot so far. And as I mentioned, like the one thing I might try out is a main deck Golgari Charm because that card is just insane.
So one of the things I noticed looking at this is you said Tombstalker over True Name, and my first thought on that is against a lot of decks in Legacy, Tombstalker is almost the same anyway. It's gonna be unblockable against a large portion of decks, and you think that that being two bigger is just really just that big of a difference?
Yeah, so it actually is like Tombstalker. If you think about it, it's like a 3 turn clock usually, um, and it's just like once it hits the board, it ends the game so quickly, so they have very little time to draw their outs. And so basically, the only spell that really kills Tombstalker efficiently is Swords to Plowshares. And then when you're playing against blue, white, red, it often comes down to a race. So if they Swords to Plowshares or Tombstalker, you're like you don't
Yeah,
like it,
sweet.
but
I'm
you're not
ahead.
yeah, you're not in the worst shape either. Um, and because it doesn't die to Abrupt Decay, it doesn't die to Lightning Bolt, it's pretty damn hard to kill, basically. And so, yeah, there was one game I played against Eric Smith on camera at StarCityGames Providence. He was playing Jund, and in the Jund matchup, like, there's no way he can deal with it as long as I have another creature out, so he can't Liliana me. Doomstalker just kills him so quickly. So yeah,
Sounds good.
it was a fantastic choice, and I would definitely stick with it. You could also play True Name Nemesis. Yeah, like I said, if you play True Name Nemesis in this deck, I would recommend probably playing Thoughtseize over Hymn to Torok, just so your mana base isn't Terabad. Um, but I think Hymn to Torok is a much stronger card than Thoughtseize. Although Thoughtseize is fine too against Stoneforge Mystic decks, but I like Hymn to Torok so much because you get so many free wins. Like you might mana screw them or take their own only relevant spells. It's just like a fantastic card.
What about the thing I'm worried about with Tombstalker is eating your own graveyard when you're playing Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, that actually, believe it or not, it doesn't matter or it doesn't come up that often when it matters because Tombstalker is just so big that it ends the game so quickly by itself, and your opponents usually have a graveyard too, so Goyf won't really shrink to more than to less than a 3/4. And at that point, Deathrite Shaman is just draining them too. So, and usually they also have removal spells to kill your Goyfs and Deathrite Shaman. So then when Tombstalker hits the board, it's just your end game.
Okay, cool. So now I guess what we're going to do is move on to talking about True-Name Nemesis, because you even mentioned your design with True-Name in mind. So obviously, Bob, you've considered what True-Name is doing to the format, whether it's good or bad, or...
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought a lot about the card. Like when it first was spoiled, I was just gonna like spill. If I had a drink, I would have spilt it because I was just like, whoa, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And so I spent like the next month or two trying to figure out, where to play it in. I tried it in Merfolk, because I thought the card was absurdly broken. Okay, I guess now I wouldn't say I think it's absurdly broken, but it's just like such a stupid card. Yeah, like the games that I was playing on like Magic Workstation and Cockatrice, it was just like, oh, hit the board. Oh, I win in like 3 or 4 turns. Great.
Yeah, I really like the opinion. I've seen a couple people on the source put out. They say, I don't want to see this banned, but I would like to have seen it never be made in the first place.
Like, it's definitely non-interactive is the problem.
Yeah, when it comes down, like against, for example, with Miracles, my options are, and I've got more than most people. I've got a couple sweepers and dealing with the equipment, and that's about all you've got.
Like, I'm not sure why the card was not printed with either A, protection from everything, so it's a mini Progenitus, meaning you can't equip it, so it'd just be a 3/1 whatever, or B, it had hexproof unblockable.
Well, I think the claim at least will be that this is not made for a a one-on-one game. This is made for a 5-person free for all where I'm gonna play True Name and I'm gonna attack Sean, and Sean's gonna be pissed about it, but Matt's gonna let me do it for a little while and then he's gonna kill it.
Yeah, but the thing is, then don't cost it for Legacy.
That's true. Yeah,
like they even said that they designed it for EDH, and then they're like, but let's push it for Legacy, and that's just a bad idea, especially when you don't test.
So how would you cost this to be more fair?
Well, I think if you need to cost it out of the format, you just make it 4 mana.
Yeah.
Because at 4 mana, a 3/1 that does this is not good enough. If it was a 4 power for 4 that did this at 4 mana would be still playable. So I think a 3/1 for 4 mana is not playable, because at 4 mana, you better be chasing me.
Well, it seems like if your plan is going to be 2-colored and 2-colorless for something that has protection from everything, just play natural order.
Yeah, pretty much. And I get a 10/10, right? So, or a Crater Hoof, and I just get to kill you right then.
Seems okay. Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you guys just mentioned. I don't blame them for designing the card for Commander. Like, that's totally fair. It was just like a complete oversight as to, its effect on Legacy. The funny part about it is like they actually had an article released about, designing cards for Eternal formats and how they were like, oh, we did this great job. Look at this card, unexpectedly absent. And then it just like, okay, that card is almost irrelevant.
Unexpectedly absent from the format.
Yeah, there we
go. That seems like Unexpectedly Absent is one of those cards. It might see a little play in a little while when the format has finished adjusting to True Name, because it seems like one of the things it's strongest at, to me, is hitting a counterbalance. And that's something that might start happening more often as people move to decks with more sweepers to handle True-Name Nemesis.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you mentioned, and I think this is something we should discuss, is there's a couple source threads on this, is the banning of True-Name Nemesis. So you said that you would have preferred not to have seen it at all in the first place, and I would agree with that. But on the other hand, if that's the case, then like, what is so bad about just banning this card? Because I think, there's a couple arguments for why you would ban a card. In terms of sheer power level, I think we could keep it here, because as you see, there are plenty of answers for it in the format, and it's not, dominating top 8s anywhere close to like what Survival or like Mental Misstep was. On the other hand, it takes so much interactivity out of the game. It's not fun even if you win. A lot of people are going to play this card because they're winning with it, but it's not really, particularly fun for them. It's not showing off any of their, skills or whatever, just to drop a 3/1, equip it, and then have their opponents have absolutely no outs in their deck, or just like very few ways of dealing with it.
A lot of people, and even Wizards, complains about like the non-interactivity of Legacy, or how sometimes it can be non-interactive. So then why would you print a card that was that non-interactive? What's the point? Right?
Well,
Yeah.
and
So
my big thing about wanting to ban it is I'm anti-ban, at least for now, is that it seems like calls for banning are coming sooner and sooner, and I would like to see it be 3 to 6 months where we let the metagame adjust and see, people playing maybe more counter spells, more sweepers, more equipment destruction. Because if you destroy the equipment attached to it, a 3-1 is a pretty long clock.
No,
because
I
you also
agree.
got to remember, like
Yeah.
a 3-1, like Ventilian Clique is a 3-1, and most of the time, most people aren't playing flying creatures anyway. So it's like having without the equipment, it's like just having a Ventilian Clique that can also block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose so. And it kind of sets up that, as we mentioned when we first talked about it, it sets up that wall where it's almost like an energy field for their side, but only for one creature. Because if you play that, their biggest guy doesn't get to attack, essentially, which is that's one of the other things about it that makes it kind of non-interactive. Is I can't even just beat you to death because you can just stand there and take it.
A creature gains trample when it would be blocked by True-Name Nemesis. That would also be okay.
A funny thing, I just learned that apparently if you attack with a creature, they block with a true name, and then you skull crack them, the true name will die now because the damage can't be prevented.
And this is when all of us go look up Skullcrack to make sure we know what it does.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Skullcrack.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. And is that a card that's going to go from 2 cents to, well, it's an uncommon, so $1?
I mean, I was just saying this is another way you could potentially get around uh, the beast that is true name Nemesis.
I mean, personally, like, my plan for getting around True Nemesis is as long as you can beat the equipment, like Sam was saying, you don't care a whole lot. Like, I mean, Liliana increases in like in how good she is in
Hmm.
value. Golgari Charm, like all the, it's going to cause a metagame shift for sure, which is kind of what we wanted to talk about, a few minutes from now, not necessarily right now. But how you adapt to it is basically the black-green decks are going to have to play more equipment removal, and the blade decks are just going to be the blade TNN decks.
Well, and as an example of that shift, I played against some Black X decks last weekend, and I think in 4 rounds, so against, or 5 rounds against 5 opponents, I saw like 7 Innocent Bloods. And that's a card that is with that many, it's maybe a little bit of an overreaction, but that's an example of how the metagame will shift. Everything will be fine once everyone starts kind of retuning their decks to handle things, and we get this nice progression that we don't get in a lot of other formats where, something like True Name comes out, everyone adjusts to either play or beat it, and then people adjust to those changes, and it continually evolves. And that's one of the reasons I love Legacy, is because you can do all that. You can make your plans for it and say, okay, everyone's gonna be trying to attack True Name this tournament, so I know I can attack the way they're attacking it. And that's one of the reasons I don't want to see it banned, is that it makes the format interesting to continue to have these kind of changes.
Okay, no, I can agree with that. I just think like games where true name are involved are just incredibly stupid. Just like the game Sam Black had against Owen, it was just like, oh, who has more true name nemesis? Who has the bigger dick? And I just like absolutely hated that. And the other point I would make is, not only does it make games not fun to watch, but the next banned restricted announcement would be in February. So I think by then we might have a better idea of how the metagame is going to evolve and adapt, and maybe it'll adapt enough so that true name decks will just be another slice of the metagame, kind of like Delver decks, but maybe they'll still be very dominant, and then we can reassess whether or not a banning should be put into effect.
Another point that also kind of grinds my gears about this is the fact that say this card is really really good in Legacy, which so far it seems to be not too bad. You put it in a box set with limited run. Now, even though it's an unlimited run that they've said, don't get me wrong, stores sell out. Like, you need to wait. So it's like, I need, say, 3 True Name Nemesis. Where do I go get them? Do I have to go to eBay and pay infinite money? What store is selling them for MSRP? Like, their distribution of a possible pillar of the format seems like a bad idea.
Well, and in addition to that, there's a lot of people who I've seen a lot of people online who were not going to get this set, and they're not even legacy players looking for true names. They've just assumed that because previous commander sets have been limited, that they weren't going to be able to get these. And when they found out that these are not a limited print run product, they say, "Okay, perfect. I'm going to go out and buy 5 EDH decks." And that's made it even harder to get some of this stuff. And while they are printing more, and I know like my local game store is still getting shipments, they're getting shipments in like 2 of each deck every 2 weeks. And they're doing the thing like posting on the website, hey, these come out on Wednesday. We open at noon. Don't get mad if you don't get one if you're not here on Wednesday at noon. And that's a little bit of a distribution problem, maybe a little bit of a planning problem. But these products are super popular, and it's not just Legacy, and that's something that everyone needs to be prepared for. And that's from Wizards down to the local gaming store level.
Alright, so I think that's the impact. I mean, I guess now, Bob, if you want to talk about the actual results, like this whole like December 2013 Legacy thing, you can talk about how in the past couple of tournaments, TNN percentages, etc. If you want to talk for like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, what we see is basically, for those who don't know, I did a November Legacy metagame analysis. You can find that on eternalcentral.com. And then I did another one for the post TNN world. So basically, since TNN was released on November 1st, and basically what we saw is, a move away from Shardless Bug and towards these various Stoneblade variants, whether that's Deathblade, Esperblade, or straight blue-white. And these decks have been doing really well. In fact, just a couple of random statistics out there. True-Name Nemesis has been in 28% of top-performing decks. And that's that's less than Stoneforge Mystic, which is 32%, and Delver of Secrets, which is 30%, but it's more than Deathrite Shaman and more than Tarmogoyf, so that's how big it's been since the release. And that actually makes a lot of sense because I guess True Name Nemesis is sort of the next new face, and everybody was trying to abuse it, but it also matches up very well against Tarmogoyf. So we begin to see a little bit of a metagame shift towards True Name Nemesis, and there actually has a lot of interesting implications for the format. So Rug Delver is still the top deck, and they have plenty of answers for a 3-drop, whether it's just countering it or racing it, or going over the top with Delver Secrets. But another interesting implication of that is these fair decks. Like if you look at Owen Turtenwald's GP winning list, because they're playing True Name Nemesis, they have a lot more space in their sideboard that they can devote to combo. So he was actually able to play 4 Meddling Mages. And from what I've been hearing from combo players, and I've been talking to my friends about this who play Storm, who play Show and Tell, that's like a nightmare for them because it's a lot harder to just beat to beat Hate Bears plus counterspells than to beat just counterspells or just Hate Bears. And if that's what the format is moving towards, combo is going to have a lot harder of a time. And you can also see that a little bit in these statistics. Basically, in my last analysis, combo was around 40% of the format, and right now it dropped to 29% of the format. So that's going to be interesting to see going forward if that's actually the case, because True Name Nemesis is so good against the fair decks, they can devote less slots against the fair decks and more slots against the unfair decks, is the idea.
I approve of this analysis.
Yep, and I like that you've pointed out, I've seen a lot of people in the Rugs threads saying that they're worried about Rugs' chances against True Name, and I think that Rugs' plan against True Name is either counter or race it, and racing it is definitely a viable option. As an example of the most ridiculous amount of racing it, I played Merfolk recently, and they resolve a True Name, and you accidentally made it a 5-3, and then you swing for like 27 and don't care anyway.
Like, I think Rug Delver especially is going to have to basically say, okay, how many Ancient Grudge would I like to pack in my sideboard to deal with their equipment?
For the last several months, that's been at least 2, usually 2 in like a Croson Grip or 3. So I don't think that's really that big of a concern anyway.
Okay, well, if you weren't, now you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. You should definitely play at least 2, probably 3. Because, yeah, like we said, Rug can beat a 3-1 Progenitus.
Pretty much. I mean, like you were saying though, I think definitely instead of having like the blade decks have definitely fallen out of favor because the black-green decks in the past little bit have just been really good, and they should be. They deserve their time in the sun considering we've never really had it. Now I think your mid-range, your entire quote-unquote mid-range has now split into black-green X mid-range and now blade mid-range.
Hmm.
So it's now you've just got another flavor of mid-range. However, the blade decks are going to be really, really good, and they also, most of the blade decks, I mean, they're all going to be playing blue, so I mean, they're going to be a little bit better against combo too. So you'll probably see more people picking them up just to have that little extra edge against combo. So sad.
Yep. Well, there is I don't know exactly where it is, and I'm not going to go search for it because it will make me angry. But Wizards has straight up said that mid-range is the way that they want Magic as a game to go in the long term, is that they don't want it to be the trinity of combo, control, and aggro. They want it to be the trinity of combo, aggro, and mid-range, which I think is a little boring. Maybe we could have it be a four-way, not a three-way. That's more exciting. But that is the way that they intend on having the game go long term, so be prepared.
You can always go long term with a four-way.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
The thing is, though, like, especially I'm looking at, say, at least for me, I'm going to the StarCityGames Invitational in a month. Fuck, it's not even a month. It's like 2 weeks. Shit.
Cool.
I
Congrats.
guess I guess I should start playing standard.
Oh yeah, that was Oh yeah, so I actually just gonna interject here for a moment. I got ninth in Providence on breakers. So while that was unfortunate, I realized that now I was not qualified for the Invitational, so I would not need to kind of puke on myself and play standard for a month in preparation. So that was good.
Yeah, so that's kind of the sad part, is I have to actually play standard, which I'm not going to buy any of the cards. I'll just borrow them, because playing standard is dirty. So I won't go as far as to buy them. But I mean, looking ahead for the Invitational, I think what I'm going to have to face is basically a lot of TNN Blade decks, along with Patriot Delver, a Rug Delver. However, I don't think I'll see a lot of Bug Delver, just because people want to be playing with their True-Name Nemesis that they've picked up, in my opinion. So, hooray.
Well, being that the last Invitational was extremely sneak and show heavy, of course most of that was Team Star City, is that something that you'll also be preparing a lot for, or do you think they'll be transferring over to something TNN based?
I think they'll be transferring to something TNN based because, like, okay, so Sneak and Show is a good deck, but it has a problem against permanent-based hate. So, I mean, you can fight discard, because you can just draw another piece of whatever. But facing, say, Pithing Needle is really bad against, for Sneak and Show. So basically, I think a lot of the sideboards of these Sneak and Show decks are not running any bounce. Well, why would you not run any bounce? Well, because most of the time you didn't need it. Now, you're going to have to cut sideboard space so you can bounce like meddling mages and stuff. That seems awful. So I think people are just going to go, fuck this, switch to Blade, and then just play their own meddling mages and stuff and just go blow a combo. So I think for me, being a junk player, which I'm not going to switch decks now, I know it's not the best deck in the format, but I know it the best and I know the matchups. So I may tune my sideboard a little bit. However, Golgari Charm and Pernicious Deed have proved very, very good. Very, very good. Can't stress this enough. Against the TNN Blade decks. Like against the Bant Blade deck that I played against, Golgari Charm was obviously really good because you're playing a bunch of 0/1s. So, however, the Noble Hierarch clock was definitely something. So basically TNN, 2 Noble Hierarchs, and suddenly you're getting 5'd. Wasn't super exciting for me.
It's when you start having to swords those Noble Hierarchs and just hating yourself for it.
Yep, that did happen. There was a lot of self-loathing when I had to do that. But no, I think running... All I'll have to do is change up my sideboard, and I think we should be okay.
It sounds good. Look forward to seeing you in the winner's circle or whatever they have at the Invitational.
Hey, top 32 means $500. So
hey, that's not bad.
That's what I'm going for. So, now moving on, what do you guys think is the best True-Name Nemesis deck, and the best anti-True-Name Nemesis deck, or just card choices? I know we talked a little bit about this, but... So, Sam, then Bob.
Well, being a dirty control player, I really like Miracles against it because I'm running a fair number of 3-drops. I'm running the enchantments build, so energy field, so they're not going to be able to hit me anyway. But the big thing is you can fit a ton of sweepers into that deck. I know at one point Joe was playing 3 Terminus with 1 board and a Supreme Verdict. That's got to be double what anything else in the format's playing. So I think Miracles is a strong choice just because you can fit all of those mass removal spells. Honestly, I haven't played a whole lot with it, but like I said, I played Merfolk last weekend, and it wasn't bad just because you can race that thing really easy, and it can't block you most of the time. So they pull out a true name, and yeah, you accidentally gave it +2 or +3, but you're also giving your 6 or 7 Merfolk +2 and +3, and that's not really a big deal at that point. So I think it's possible that Merfolk might see a little more play based on that, just because it can just race it. It doesn't need to counter it.
So Merfolk was actually my starting point for playing True-Name Nemesis. I mean, it was just the most obvious place to start. And I think True-Name Nemesis is very, very good in Merfolk, and I would agree with that. On the other hand, Merfolk is still just kind of a bad deck. All it has is Silver Gill Adept to get through, its clunky draws, and I just found that not to be enough to compete with these other decks. So I actually think the best build for True-Name Nemesis, or the best home for it rather, is Deathblade, because you have both the mana acceleration of Deathrite Shaman, you have Stoneforge Mystic for the equipment, and you also have answers for opposing True-Name Nemesis in the form of Zealous Persecution or Liliana of the Veil. And I think both those cards are going to see a big uptick in play if the format is still a True-Name Nemesis format. So I really actually like Deathblade right now. And actually, a couple different builds of Deathblade can still afford to run 1 or 2 basics. And so that means it won't just auto-lose to Blood Moon like the old versions of Deathblade. So I really like Deathblade right now. I think it's the best True-Name deck.
Yeah, I think the best True-Name deck is probably Esperblade or possibly a Bant build, because I think with Bant, you have a lot of variety in having the Green Sun Zenith package as well, like going to fetch up Casali Pride Mage, as well as a Noble Hierarch, or Rox War Monk. Rox War Monk was actually quite good in the deck that we played. Sylvan Safekeeper, again, very good. However, it gets hurt a little bit more by Golgari Charm than the other deck. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. Best anti-TNN card choices, obviously Supreme Verdict, Terminus, Moat, Engineered Explosives, Pernicious Deed, Golgari Charm, Zealous Persecution, and just stuff like Ancient Grudge. I mean, if I was playing Jund, I would basically just play the Punishing Fire Jund package, and then I would just play extra stuff in the sideboard. So I'd just play extra Ancient Grudge, and I'd probably play an extra Sylvan Library so I can see more stuff. And I'm pretty sure Jund can do alright against Esperblade.
Oh yeah.
I think Jund is another one of those that they're just while Liliana is one excellent option for them. I think most of the time Jund's plan is just going to be to overwhelm them with guys.
Just overwhelm them with fairness.
Well, I mean, I don't know how fair Bloodbraid Elf is.
Very fair.
In Legacy, it's pretty fair, yeah.
It's turn 4. You're Jacing, I'm Bloodbraiding, Hopefully into Ancient Grudge, though.
Yeah.
Whee! Alright, so then I'm just going to look at the source thread to see if there's anything else we can kind of talk about. Broken cards to watch out for. I don't think there's anything we can really watch out for because there's no set coming out.
Yeah, this is a really long time between sets. It's almost 5 months between Theros and Born of the Gods?
Yeah.
Well, that'll make your Theros cards nice and cheap, all 2 playable ones.
Yep. A crazy play that any of you had recently in any tournament? Like an insane play?
Well, I've recounted this on Twitter once, but I played in 2 Ticket Tuesday last week, which is the $2 sealed on Moto. And I went turn 1, the sliver that gives everyone flying, turn 2, muscle sliver, turn 3, muscle sliver, didn't draw anything else for the entire rest of the game, and won. And I did that twice.
I approve. Okay.
It was very satisfying. In a format that's not nearly as powerful as Legacy, it was very satisfying to win on turn 5.
This was cube or?
This is sealed.
Not cube sealed. This was just M14 sealed.
Yeah, this was M14 sealed.
Okay, that's awesome. Actually, you just reminded me of something. If you guys go to the GPDC coverage, one of my friends, Kyle Pittleman, he won a grinder with 5-color aggro slivers, which I think is the most hilarious deck in the format. It's not really a deck, but it should be a deck. It's a deck that here, let me go find the list right now. Um, it's a deck that's basically, 4 Ether Vials, 2 Dismembers, a whole bunch of Rainbow Lands, and then just all slivers. It's playing 4 Gale Riders, and 4 of the First Strike slivers, and then, all the Sliver Lords, Crystalline Sliver. And this deck just has an incredibly good matchup against all the other, like, creature decks, because you just get bigs so fast. And you also, if you have Crystalline Sliver, they can't kill any of your stuff. So it kind of is an auto win against a lot of the creature strategies in the format. And in addition to that, it just like sucks hard against combo. Like it's not playing Force of Will or Wasteland, so it basically can't beat combo at all game one. So then in the board, it just plays 15 Hate Bears. So I just think it's like one of the funniest decks I've ever seen. Yeah. So if you go to the day one coverage and go to the grinder deck lists, you can see Kyle Pittleman with his Slivers deck, and I just think it's so awesome. Oh, he even has a mirror entity in there, and there were a couple times where I saw him like blow out people hard. He had an Aether Vial on 3, people would declare blocks, and then he would be like, mirror entity, clear your board. It was so much fun to watch.
That's ridiculous. Insane play for me, probably something along the lines of, let's see. I think I double smitered somebody. I can't remember when.
Like
However,
off of him?
Off of him to
Oh
Turok.
my god.
I had 3 cards. I had 3 cards in hand, and this person was not aware of the fact that I was playing Luxodon Smiter. So of course I'm like, "Yep, him resolves," and the person just shit their pants. And a turn later, they were just like, "And let's go to game 3." All right. I lost game 1 pretty hard, but I had them in my hand. I'm like, no, you don't get to see these. I'll just scoop. Nope. Game 2, gotcha. So that was a pretty good gotcha play.
Oh man, that's so good. Yeah, Loxodon Spire gets better if people start playing more Liliana to deal with true names.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of Luxodon Smiter. He can't be countered. Doesn't die to rest in peace.
Yeah, it's funny. He's one of those can't be countered cards that see less play. So then a lot of people will forget that he can't be countered.
I got smitered in game 1 of my Bant matchup because my turn 3 play against his like Geist or whatever. He had like 3 creatures out at that time. I'm like, okay, I can't -2 here. Like, there's no point. I'll just make him discard the last card in his hand. Maybe it's an equipment. Nope, it's a fucking Luxodon Smiter. So I just died even harder game 1. So yeah. That's how my life is. That's where I get to live. So Shawan from the source, Shawan, Sean, whoever it is, post number 6 said, since your last episode, you made a suggestion to never leave Graveyard Hate at home. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about the subject. A potential topic could be discussing exactly how one can prepare their sideboard to fight the graveyard without overcommitting to it, given the deck that they're using. So, starting with Sam, then Bob, then me, talk about Graveyard Hate and how many slots you should run depending on the deck.
Well, this is an interesting thing I've been talking with some friends about recently. Is I got into Legacy about 5 or 6 years ago, and back then, even then, Dredge wasn't a huge thing. But if you weren't running at least 3 pieces of Graveyard Hate, you were doing it wrong. And I try and stay with around that many. And depending on your deck, you might run a lot more simply because Graveyard Hate, it doesn't just beat the graveyard decks being like Reanimator and Dredge. It also does things like hosing Deathrite and Termagoyf and a lot of other stuff that bases itself on the graveyard. So, for example, in my Miracles build, I'm running only 3 pieces of Graveyard Hate, but it's Rest in Peace, which I can get with Enlightened Tutor, and it's in my main deck. In the Merfolk deck I put together, I'm running 3 pieces of Graveyard Hate. It's 3 Relic of Protenda. So I think 3 is your minimum. Depending on what you're playing or what you're playing against, that might change. For example, if you're playing your own Deathrite Shaman or your own Termagoyf, maybe Rest in Peace isn't the way to go. You might need to go for something like Relic of Progenitus that can get just their graveyard, or Tormod's Crypt, which can get just their graveyard. But I think 3 is probably where you want to be unless you just straight up and die to a Reanimator or Dredge strategy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, I also think it depends a lot on what deck you're playing. For example, if you're playing Bug Delver and you already have four main deck Deathrite Shamans, you could probably get away with only playing one or two pieces of Graveyard Hate in the board. And then, like, yeah, if you're playing Tarmogoyfs and Deathbrites in your deck, then maybe you want to play Nile Spellbomb or Grafdigger's Cage instead of cards like Relic of Progenitus. So that all makes sense. But so my strategy for DC was I felt like Reanimator was already a pretty good matchup, so I didn't need to worry about it too much. And then Dredge was actually a very bad matchup, and I felt like I would need to devote like probably 2 or 3 slots because Deathrite Shaman just is not that great against Dredge. Sometimes they can just like power through it. So I felt like I needed to devote too many slots to beat a deck that I felt like I wouldn't see too much of. So that's the other way of just maybe not playing any Graveyard Hate at all if you have no chance against Reanimator or Dredge. Maybe just like give up those matchups and then use your sideboard slots for something that's actually gonna help you win more at a tournament. So those are sort of the two ways that you can go about it. And as far as Graveyard Hate cards, right now I really like Grafdigger's Cage because you can use it against Storm. It shuts off Blast and Flames, and you can use it against Elves, and it shuts down Green Sun Zenith and Natural Order. And Julian was saying that that's actually the card that he fears the most. He would rather play against Engineered Plague than play against Grafdigger's Cage. So I think that's definitely saying something.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say, like, it really depends on your matchup. If you're a black-green X player like me, I'm running 4 Deathrite Shaman and 2 Ooze main with Greens and Zeniths. So I think I'm a little bit more prepared as opposed to the most people who are playing just 4 Deathrite Shaman. I actually got called out on playing Ooze main. Somebody was like, "Who plays Ooze main?" It's Legacy, boys. Can't really expect too much. So I most of the time I would probably run 1 to 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate in the side. So whether it's, I wouldn't play Relic of Progenitus, but Grafdigger's Cage, or Crypt, Spellbomb, Fairy Macabre, whatever. Or Bajuka Bog, because I'm running Knight. But I think if the matchup is so terrible for you that even 4 Graveyard Hate cards in your sideboard makes it iffy, I would just say not bother. Just don't worry
Just
about it.
hope not to hit that match.
Yep.
That's a fair strategy in Legacy with as many decks as there are. Sometimes it's better to say, I just hope I don't play against it.
Yeah, I just lose to this deck, and that's it. I think right now, graveyard-based strategies are really powerful. I just think that the people who are playing them, like, let's put it this way, the last time I found somebody who is really, really skilled at playing Quad Laser Dredge was a little while ago. Most people seem to have not been on their graveyard-based deck for long enough to make it so that I have to run more cards.
It's true, especially with Dredge. Dredge is often a budget choice, not a deck choice, really. So you do have the possibility that, especially like against Dredge, that you might be running up against someone who might not know the format as well.
Exactly. Another request was year in review and predictions for 2014. So I think we kind of already covered this, but basically since Born of the Gods doesn't come out till January, February?
Yeah.
February.
Yeah, the metagame is not going to change much until basically GP Paris, if there's any cards in Born of the Gods that actually do anything.
Well, I certainly hope so. Theros was a bit disappointing from a Legacy standpoint.
Well, Swansong's beginning to see some more play, and Rorikthar. Oh wait, no, that was Dragon's Maze. Sorry. But yeah, I guess just Swansong then.
Yeah, Swansong has. I can see Swansong picking up some play, but I mean it's really good against Sneak and Show, because countering either their sneak attack or their show and tell is relevant. But other than that, Theros did not have many good things, at least for Legacy. Boy.
Lewis Laskin has been playing Thassa in his Miracles deck. I think that's pretty cool.
As a one of. I think Thassa is okay, don't get me wrong. Scrying every turn for a control deck is where you want to be. However, is that good enough?
Paying 4 is not where you want to be, though. I think you want to be getting Jace.
Yeah, you're paying 3, though.
Oh, that's
Thassa's
right.
Only. But still, what are you doing with her ability? You're never devoting, really. You're only devoting if you have Jace, Thassa, Vendilion Clique. And if you've got Jace, Thassa, Vendilion Clique, you're already winning anyway. You're not playing man lands to abuse the unblockable clause. So what are you doing? You're just scrying every turn for 3? Like, I don't know, run more Sensei's Dividing Tops. Run 8 Sensei's Dividing Tops, I'm sure. No. Probably run the Ponders or something.
Yeah, I agree.
There's not really anything else on here.
It's all right. We're at about an hour, which is about where we want to be.
It'll probably be a shorter cast, but whatever.
That's fine.
Excellent. Okay. Now the outro. So Sam, do you want to?
You got it, man. I'm like still tired out of my mind.
Okay. So thanks for listening to the cast. If you have any suggestions or tips, feel free to email or tweet to us or whatever you kids do nowadays. I'm Matt Pavlic.
I'm Sam Craven.
I'm Bob Huang.
And thanks for listening. See you next time.
Yay!
All right.
Yay.
So now let's. Sorry.
I'm a little bummed we don't get to hear that catchy music. Where did you find that, by the way? I really like it.
It's that is Film by Aphex Twin.